Hi, everybody. Today we are going to be looking at those pesky apostrophes and how to use them because a lot of people make the mistake of adding apostrophes when really they're trying to make a word plural. So instead of I have one dog, I have two dogs, which would be plural just by adding an S, they are adding an apostrophe S. Or they want to talk about their father's car and they don't add an apostrophe. So that's really the difference. So we're going to take a peek at some rules here. And I went to grammarly.com because a lot of people are using Grammarly. I have no affiliation with Grammarly at all, and I don't use it personally, but I've had more and more students say that it's been very helpful for them, especially if English is an additional language for them. And I was looking for a good example, and they had a great example here. So I'm just going to show this one on their website talking about apostrophes and possessive noun. So possessive is when you own something. If it was me, I don't have to worry about the S because I'd be saying my car, my house, my school books. But if I'm going to say my cat's collar, there's an S involved, and I have to figure out how it is that I use that. So there are apostrophes, which is this little punctuation here, and possessives versus plurals. So we'll do this little lesson. I'm going to walk you through when to use an apostrophe S. There's a couple of little hiccups later on where we do use one when it's probably not intuitive to do so, or vice versa. But for the most part, it is straightforward. If you're talking about ownership, that somebody owns something or it's somebody is using something, you do get an apostrophe S. So for the most part, we're just adding that apostrophe plus an S. The dog's leash, whose leash is it? Who's wearing that leash or who's using that leash? It's the dog's leash. So apostrophe S. One dog, one leash. One writer, one desk. The writer's desk. Whose desk? The writer's desk. Again, one writer, one desk. One planet, one atmosphere. The planet's atmosphere. But sometimes, like many of you, might have more than one dog, or there may be more desks in your ownership or the classroom. And so if you're using a plural, it gets a little trickier, but not by much. For plural nouns, so already dogs is plural. There are more than one of them. Maybe you're a dog walker. Maybe you own multiple dogs. My sister has 5. Lots of dogs. The dog's leashes, multiple dogs. So I have to change where I put that apostrophe, or else I'll think it's a singular dog if I just have D-O-G apostrophe S. So you keep the plural. More than one dog? There are dogs, multiple. They get a plural. They get an S. So the apostrophe goes after that S. The dog's leashes. So here we've got 2 plurals. Leash went from leash to leashes. Leashes. Because a leash ends in SH, we have to add an ES. Those are other pesky grammar rules in English. But dog, most consonants just have an S afterwards to make it plural. The dog's leashes. The writer's desks. I have many writers. All of you are going to be writers. If there's 20 of you, I have 20 writers, and you all have desks. So there's multiple desks and multiple writers, and you're all my writers. The writers' desks. So I have to pluralize writers because there's multiple of you, and I use that apostrophe to make sure that you know that I'm talking about ownership. There are multiple planets. Poor Pluto, though. Not a planet anymore. The planet's atmospheres. Many planets, different atmospheres. I've pluralized it because I'm talking about multiple planets, but I still have to tell you that they're owning that atmosphere. It's theirs. And so I add the apostrophe right there. Now, children and other nouns whose plurals are irregular, they don't just add S. So here they're giving you the description children. Children is already multiple kids. There are multiple humans, and they are children, not childs. So children is already multiple. I don't have to worry about adding any S to make that a multiple kids. So children's would just utilize the apostrophe S. Geese is the plural of goose. So you don't say gooses, but we have geese. It's already plural. And so geese apostrophe S. There's a couple of other ways that we use apostrophes, and these are neat. There are some people's names that end in S. And if I had, so Charles Dickens, the author, he's written many novels. Charles Dickens' novel. If I had Charles Dickens, his name already ends in S, and then an apostrophe S, that could get tricky for the tongue. Charles Dickens' novels. Kansas, Maine Airport. Kansas already ends in an S. I'm not going to say Kansas's Maine Airport. But you can, and here's where it gets tricky. So some style guides just say apostrophe or S apostrophe, which I recommend and use. But others say that grammatically it's not incorrect to have the Dickens and then apostrophe S, but it can get a little clunky. And if someone's trying to pronounce that, it can get a little hard for the tongue. Dickens's, Kansas's Maine Airport. But they're both correct. So it's up to you how you use that. What about somebody's house? It's their name. It says here to add only the apostrophe to plural proper nouns that end in S. For example, the Harris's house. Harris is their last name. Mr., Ms., Mrs. Harris. Together, though, all of them, and maybe their children, they'd be the Harrises. Okay? So I'm pluralizing it. There's no apostrophe to say to make them plural. If I had 2 people, 4 people, 20 people in that home, and their last name is Harris, to pluralize it, I just add the ES because it already ends in the S. But to tell me that they own something, their car or their house or their dog or their yard or their farm, I still have to add an apostrophe somewhere. It's already plural. There's multiple of them. So it follows the same rule. I just put the apostrophe at the end. And here we've got the Smiths, TH, one Smith, multiple Smiths in the house. I have to add the S. They're all going on vacation, the whole household. Maybe there's 4 Smiths, maybe there's 7 Smiths, but there's multiple Smiths. And they're all going on vacation. So I've pluralized it already with S. And then I put the apostrophe afterwards to show that they are owning that vacation or that house or that car. So this is the only place where you have a little bit of choice in how you do it depending on the style guide or personal preference. They are both correct. There are other personal pronouns, like I said earlier, my house, your book, his car, her doctor, and you don't have to worry about any apostrophes at all. Now, this one is interesting. Maybe the 2 of us had an idea or own a business, or maybe 2 of you are writing a report. Sometimes you get to work on your homework together. It's group work. Or I say, go off and do this practice sheet together. And then you would say, I'd say, okay, who's doing activity number 2? And it might be, well, Carol and Raj. So it's Carol's, is it Carol's and Raj's report? Is it Carol and Raj report? Carol's and Raj? Carol and Raj's? It gets a little tricky. So I wanted to show you how you would do it properly. And this might come in very handy because a lot of the reports that you're going to be reading, or a lot of the stats, or a lot of the work that you're producing will be produced by multiple people. It won't just be you on your own. So here's our example. Bob and Jim's bait shop. Fish shop, furniture store, it doesn't make a difference. Bob and Jim's bait shop. Bob and Jim co-own that bait shop, but I don't put the apostrophe S after the first name or the first multiple names. It only has to go on that last one. So if it's one thing that they have, the report, the store, the business, the building, the car that they share. Bob and Jim's bait shop. Ryan, Jessica, and Eleanor's parents. They are siblings. They all share the same thing, the same parents. So we have Ryan, there's no apostrophe S there. There's no apostrophe S after Jessica, only after Eleanor, because these guys are a unit. These people are together. They share the parents, so they are a unit. But there could be different bait shops or different parents. So all of you, unless you're siblings, you have different parents. And so if I'm trying to describe, like let's say it's a parent-teacher meeting or it's conferences where we're giving information to your parents about work placements. At your age, you probably wouldn't have that happen, but think back when you were younger and in school, and you would have multiple parents in the auditorium or whatever for parent-teacher or for whatever reason. Bob's and Jim's bait shops. So if you've ever been to the coast in Shediac or in PEI, you'll have a whole bunch of bait shops or boat shops or fishing shops or going out on tours, boat tours. They're each separately owned. So Bob has one, Jim has one. They both own bait shops, but they're all separate. They own something different. And that's when you'd say Bob's and Jim's bait shops, because he owns one and he owns one. But up here, if they own it together. So that's why this one gets one apostrophe, because they are a unit. So they're treated like a singular. Ryan's, Jessica's, and Eleanor's parents. So in my class, if I have 100 students and they all have different parents, they would each get their own apostrophe S. So the last tricky part that we're going to cover today is apostrophes in plurals. So many signs, and you're going to notice them now all of the time. You'll go past a restaurant that have the signs up front, 2 burgers for $5. As a matter of fact, even in here, they talk about how it's called the grocer's apostrophe, because it's misused so very often whenever you're advertising foods, or you'll go to a store, two backpacks for $20, and they'll have an apostrophe S. But plurals don't get apostrophes. So you wouldn't see oranges, 3 oranges for $1. I'm only pluralizing it. The oranges do not own anything. If I had said the oranges peel, they would own that peel and it would need an apostrophe. But here it doesn't own anything. Matter of fact, you're going to buy it and own it. 3 oranges for $1 is incorrect. So no apostrophes for plurals. But here we have a problem. If I told you to cross your T's and dot your I's, and I had to write that out, don't forget to dot your I's. Well, that's the word I's right here, but doesn't it look like the word is? And we always strive for the most clarity. So the only time we're going to use an apostrophe in a plural, and it pains me even to say this because it can get confusing. In this case, we'd have to, so that you would know, your reader would know, that it's dot your I's, not dot your is. So there's a few different rules there. But the number 1 rule is don't use apostrophes to make a plural. If there's more than one of something, use just S or ES. Dogs, cats, farms, buildings, bridges, roads, streets, mountains, clouds. But if they own something, the building's manager, apostrophe S. Good luck with all of that, and we'll be working with it in a few of our assignments. Thanks, everybody.